Hi, everybody. Welcome to U6-L5, the basics of Islam and what it has to do with India. So, learning goals. Students can describe the rise and significance of Islam in Southwest Asia and its expansion and institutionalization in other regions. Students can also analyze the impact of Indian Ocean trade on the cultures in Southern and Southeastern Asia. So, your job, just kind of the same job over again. So anything in blue text, you're going to answer directly on the ed puzzle. Anything in red text, you are going to want to write down in your study guide. So why are we learning about Islam now? You're probably like, Miss Corey, wait, like this is the India unit. Islam started in like the Middle East. I know, but there is quite the connection to it. So Islam, it started in the 600 CE. It is a rapid growing religion back then and even today. And Middle Age and modern influence um, happened through Islam, specifically in places like North and East Africa, the Middle East, Spain, Northwest India, and today across the globe. And it's important next semester when we talk about the Crusades, or maybe we'll talk about the Crusades next year. I haven't decided yet. Anyway, so just like with Unit 4 when we talked about Christianity, I will stick to teaching how Islam came about, basic beliefs, and historical facts. I'm not here to influence you or to tell you what is right or wrong. What you choose to believe is your choice, and I'm just giving you the history of it. Cool? Cool. Okay, so we talked before, right? We've seen this before. And we talked about how Judaism led to the birth of Christianity. So Judaism, we talked about how it started about 2000 BCE. It's monotheistic, so they believe in one God. The important messenger includes Abraham. He's considered the first Jewish person. Holy text includes the Hebrew Bible and which includes the Torah. Christian Old Testament and the Hebrew Bible have a majority of the same text. And then from Judaism sprang Christianity. So that started in about 33 CE. That was after Jesus' death. The main messenger and Messiah is Jesus, who was Jewish himself, and believes in other prophets. So those are people who spread the word of God, including Abraham. Holy text for Christianity is the Bible, which includes the Old and New Testaments, right? All right, that was a review for us. We also talk about how Jews and Christians believe in the same God. And that both are considered Abrahamic religions. Okay? Okay. Let's add on to this. Mm-hmm. So, Judaism, okay, from Judaism sprang Christianity, from Christianity sprang Islam. Okay? This like blew my mind when I was in the 11th grade. I like never knew this before. But Jews, Christians, and Muslims. God. Yeah, that was mind blowing for 11th grade Corey. So all three of these are also considered Abrahamic religions. So we'll talk all about Islam today, but just some basics here. So it started in 610 CE. That's when Muhammad, who was a prophet, had the revelation from God. The main prophet is Muhammad, and he's believed to be the final prophet from God. And they believe in other prophets as well, including Abraham, King David, Solomon, Moses, Noah, Jesus, and more. So their holy text is the Quran, which contains stories found in the Old and New Testament as well. Yes. So anyway, what I'm trying to get to the point is all three of them have incredibly similar overlapping features. Okay? All right. So Islam is the name of the religion. Muslim is a person who is in the Islamic religion. Okay? Arab is someone who's typically from one of these regions on the map, so kind of northern Africa into the Middle East. Those people would be Arab. Not all Arabs are Muslims. Not all Muslims are Arabs. Okay. And it also started with a man named Muhammad. Let's talk about Muhammad. So he was born in Mecca, which is a city in modern day Saudi Arabia. It is right here. So you can see Saudi Arabia. Here's the Red Sea. Here's Africa. Mecca is right there. He was born in 570 CE. He was raised by his uncle. He married a woman named Khadijah. Khadijah actually owned a caravan for transporting goods. He oversaw that caravan. Together, they had one son who died when he was young, and they had many daughters. He would end up marrying a total of 12 wives, and originally it was just originally Muhammad was practicing just like the local religion. It wasn't Judaism or Christianity. It was like its own little like pagan like religion that believes in like spirits and stuff. Um, and some of Muhammad's relatives were originally Christians. So Muhammad wasn't oblivious to like Christianity or Judaism because he had relatives that were that. So he did have some idea of Christianity and Judaism. So in 610, Muhammad is 40 years old, and he was meditating up in the mountains around Mecca. And that's when God's angel Gabriel told Muhammad he needed to spread the word of God. And you're like, Gabriel, Gabriel, that sounds familiar. Yes, that is the same angel that told Mary that she was pregnant with Jesus. Yep, same angel. To Muslims, this is called the Night of Power and Excellence when this happened. So Muhammad was shocked. He's like, what? Did an angel just talk to me? So he didn't tell anyone but family and friends about Gabriel talking to him for 3 years. But in 613, he started having revelations and started to spread the word of God. Basic beliefs that he preached included that souls would be judged by God at the end of time. God created the universe. There's only one God. God in like the Arabic languages translates to Allah, but again, it's the same God as Jews and Christians. So it's also a monotheistic religion. He also was the belief in prophets, and Muhammad would be the final prophet. And there's also the belief in angels. All right, so at the very beginning, there were very few followers of Muhammad. So Muhammad was just preaching around his town in Mecca. And Mecca authorities really were like, I'm not sure about this guy. Not quite sure if I like him or not. The reason for that is because the authorities believed in the local polytheistic religion. Muhammad did start to get some followers, especially from people who were Jewish or Christians. And the reason why that these Jews and Christians really liked Muhammad teachings was because they were passed down orally. They weren't written down. So a lot of people in Saudi Arabia during that time were illiterate. They couldn't read. So if someone handed them a Torah or a Bible, they couldn't read it. But Muhammad was there to speak the words. They could listen to him. Another reason why is because they have similar or the same teachings as Judaism and Christianity. So it wasn't a big change for people and people like that. And it also came directly from the Prophet Muhammad himself. It wasn't passed down from generation to generation. They could hear it directly from him. So Muhammad was kicked out of Mecca by the authorities. He and his followers went to Medina in 622, which is still in modern day Saudi Arabia. So you can see here on the map, here's Mecca, here's Medina. Between the two is 280 miles that they walked and traveled. And during that 280 miles, um, from the journey between Mecca and Medina, they spread the word of Muhammad. So Muhammad's travel from Mecca to Medina is called the Hijra, and it marks year number 1 in the Islamic calendar. Okay, kind of long story short about how Muslims became a conquering religion in the Middle East. Um, we could talk we could talk all day about this, but we're not. So I'm going to give you the condensed version. So Muhammad and Muslims were really mad at Mecca for kicking them out. So Muslims battled Mecca in a series of battles. Muslims eventually took over Mecca and Medina, started their own government, and then they conquered more and more and more and more and more and more land after Muhammad dies. So much land that if you can see here, so this is the Abbasid Caliphate. This is one of the largest caliphates. Caliphate's kind of like a kingdom or an empire. You could think of it as either way. And you can see here, it stretches all the way through North Africa into, of course, the Middle East, a little bit creeping towards Europe and into parts of Asia as well. This was back in 850 CE, so it's quite a few years after Muhammad died, but you can see it's a large chunk of land. So Muhammad dies in 632 due to illness or fever. Within 24 hours, a new leader of Islam is chosen. His name is Abu Bakr, and he was one of Muhammad's friends. Abu Bakr gained the title of Khalifa or successor. In English, we call it a caliph. He continued on Muhammad's teachings and he helped establish the writings for the holy text of the Quran. All right, another really important thing to learn about Islam is the 5 pillars of Islam. So these are like 5 beliefs or rules that all Muslims must follow. Number 1, there's only one God and Muhammad is his prophet. 2, Muslims need to pray 5 times a day. We'll talk about that in a couple of slides from now. 3, there's fasting during Ramadan. 4, paying alms, so that's when a Muslim should give food or money to the poor. And 5, Muslims need to make a pilgrimage once in their lifetime to Mecca. And a pilgrimage is a religious journey. A lot of different religions have pilgrimages. All right, so like I just talked about, praying 5 times a day. Oops, go back one. There we go. So Muslims are supposed to pray 5 times a day towards the city of Mecca. The reason is because that's Muhammad's home city, and it's where Muhammad had his message from Gabriel. The Qibla, that is a compass that always points in the direction of Mecca. People can still buy them today, but if people have smartphones or access to the internet, you can also just Google it of what direction like Muslims are supposed to pray to, which I find really interesting. So I did this one for Milk River. You can see Mecca would be that direction. Is hard because the earth curves. Anyway, and then also you can just Google what times in a day that Muslims are supposed to pray. And Google will pop up a whole calendar. So this is this coming week's calendar. Pretty cool. Thanks, Google. All right, so Quran is their holy text, and it is written by people who heard Muhammad's teaching. So nothing is written by Muhammad himself. He was actually illiterate. And it includes all the teachings that Muhammad heard from the angel Gabriel during his multiple revelations that Muhammad had from him between 610 to 632 CE. And a lot of the stories are similar to the Torah or in the Bible. Some details might slightly differ, but pretty much they're very similar. And Quran includes Muhammad's night journey. And this is when he was divinely transported from Mecca, and then he was transported to Jerusalem, and then to heaven, where he was then in the presence of God. So that's one of the most important stories in the Quran. All right, here is a picture of some Qurans. You can see that they're beautifully decorated. That's one of the cool things, especially about Qurans that were in from like rich families during like the Middle Ages. They were always beautifully decorated. So you can see here, I mean, just look at the detail, like all the little tiny flowers, kind of that almost like quilt looking pattern. That's all hand done. Okay. That's not off a printing press. Also, here is a cover of a Quran with some beautiful flowers. Yeah. So they're always very like detailed. Oops, go back. All right. So images of Muhammad. No one can have statues or paintings or drawings of Muhammad or prophets. The reason for this is to stop the risk of idolizing the art instead of the God. Okay, so idolizing means worshiping the object, not the real God. Okay, so that is why there are no images of Muhammad. All right, so a little bit more. A mosque, that is a place of worship for Muslims. It's equivalent to what like the Jewish synagogue or a Christian church is. Prayer leaders are called imam. Mosques always face Mecca. Minbar is the platform that imam leaders pray on. And a minaret is the tower attached or next to the mosque. Sometimes it has a courtyard too, and mosques come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. I'll show you a few examples here. Here's one of the most famous. This is the Blue Mosque in Turkey. You can see it's gigantic. And then here is a mosque that is in Minneapolis off of Freeway 94. All right. So the Hajj. The Hajj is a pilgrimage to Mecca. Like I said before, it is one of the five main pillars of Islam. Every Muslim in their lifetime needs to go to the Masjid al Haram Mosque in Saudi Arabia. So you can see, it's quite the airplane ride between the United States and the Middle East. Today, the Hajj costs a minimum about $8,000 from the U.S. to go to Mecca. So it's not cheap. All right, so when I was in high school, I always wondered what is that black building in the middle of the Hajj's mosque. So you can see here, here's the mosque all around. It's gigantic. I mean, it looks like a stadium. It's crazy big. And in this middle, or in the middle here, you can see that there's kind of like this black box looking building. So my question for you is, what do you think it is? So it is called the Kaaba, and it is believed to where Allah, again, God, has his earthly home. Yes, there are doors. There are very, very, very select few people who can go in there. So only high up imam can go in. And this is truly what Muslims are praying to 5 times a day. So here's the picture of the inside of it, if you are curious. As you can see here, you got some pillars. Yeah, pretty cool. All right, so there are two main branches of Islam. Okay, there's the Shia and the Sunnis. They split up actually pretty early into Islam's formation. So they split all the way back in 656. They are still incredibly similar. So they still believe that there is only one God, Allah, the Quran is the holy book of Islam, and they practice 5 pillars. The biggest difference is that the Shia believe that the only descendants of Muhammad can be caliphs or leaders, where the Sunni believes that caliphs do not have to be descendants of Muhammad. So, who is the leader of Islam today? That's a really good question. So, usually caliphates are the leader of Islam. You can kind of think of caliphates as like kings, and they rule the government and religious structure. The last caliphate ended way back. Okay, not way back. It only ended back in 1924 with the fall of the Ottoman Empire, which maybe we'll talk about during our World War One unit. But they sided with Germany in World War One, and well, they lost. So the caliphate kind of crumbled. Today, there is no one ruler of Islam, so mostly local rulers and different rulers of Sunni and Shiite religions are kind of like the rulers. Imam are leaders because they're experts in Islamic law as well. So, okay, Miss Corey, just tell us, what does Islam have to do with India? Like, we're talking about the Middle East. This is the India unit. Like, have you forgotten? No, I have not forgotten. Okay, so Islam is actually India's second biggest religion. As of 2011, I know that's an old stat. I couldn't find a more updated statistic. But 172 million Indians are Muslim. Pakistan, which you'll find right here, so it's next to India, was once part of India under the British rule. The British ruled India and Pakistan from 1858 to 1947. I think we talk a little bit about it when we talk about imperialism, but that's not for quite a few units from now. So, anyway, India got independence from Britain back in 1947, and India then granted Pakistan its own independence in 1947 to be a Muslim ruled country. All right, I'm getting a little ahead of myself, so let's step back to the Middle Ages. So, Mongol Empire, right? We talked about that last unit. That fell in the 1300s. So, new countries were like, Mongol Empire, they were the ones who were ruling this Silk Road. Who will rule it now that the Mongol Empire is gone? Okay, so remember, the Silk Road was very important to getting goods all the way from China to Europe. And the Indian Ocean was important for goods from China to India to Africa and then to the Mediterranean Europe. So you can see here, here's one of the maps of the Silk Road. So, question for you. Who do you think is going to be ruling a lot of the Middle East where the Silk Road, both land and sea, goes through? Yes, it's going to be Islamic caliphates. They're going to be the ones, right? Because they are ruling the Middle East, North and East Africa. Um, Also, India and China are going to play really big roles in ruling the Silk Road. So those are kind of the big three: the Islamic Caliphate, India, and China. All right, so European kingdoms are in competition with each other over wealth. They wanted the best of the best of the best of the items, and they wanted foreign items. They wanted precious metals, they wanted jewels, they wanted spices, they wanted fine textiles like silk and Asian pottery. It was also in high demand. They would also wanted traded essential goods such as cotton, pepper, rice, wheat, barley, timber, and horses. So, with that trade, they used something called dhows. So, here is a pic of a model of a dhow ship. Not show ship, it should say dhow ship. Why do you think these ships are important for trading? So, the cool thing about the dhows is they could carry, yes, this little ship could carry 400 tons, which for America version, that's about 800,000 pounds. So, it is the second heaviest load a ship could haul in the world during this time period. That's pretty crazy. It was also made of heavy hardwood wood, specifically teak wood from Southeast Asia. They had two sails, which made it easier to catch wind. They also had a rudder and not a side oar for steering. So the rudder would be right in the middle of the boat, like underneath it. And Arabs use the stars to navigate, and Indians and Asians use Chinese magnetic compass to navigate. So again, all right. So next up we have the junk, and no, not like trash junk. It's actually the name of this boat. This is the largest ship in the world for the Middle Ages. It was made of spruce and fir wood. It was made in China, and it has sails made out of bamboo. So that's why it's kind of that brownish, reddish color. And it could carry 1,000 tons, or approximately 1,400 men with armor. And it could have up to 12 sails. Crazy. So, next question for you. Do you think items were the only thing traded on the Indian Ocean and Silk Road? Hopefully you said no. So, um, things like people, ideas, germs, and religions were traded. Religions such as Islam. So, for example, here's just one example. Arab traders settled and created towns on the southern tip of India and Sri Lanka in the 1300s. So, here's kind of the map right here of the southern part of India. Here's Sri Lanka. Arabs married local women and then they converted them to Islam. And then Islam spread via trading, but also family ties. All right, look at that. You made it. So, wrap up. Today we talked about the beginnings of Islam, like Muhammad, Mecca, Medina, basics of Islam, the five pillars, mosque, Hajj, Kaaba, and then also the junk and the dhow on the Indian Ocean. All right, here's the last question for you. Summarize the history and beliefs of Islam into 3 to 4 complete sentences. And I want you to answer this question on the study guide. All right, so next up, you're going to do U6-L6, India and Islam video choice. Unit 6 summative, which I'll explain in just a sec. Yeah, oh my God, it's winter break already? Holy words, wow. Um, I hope you have a great winter break. If you have questions, email your teacher, okay? If you want to learn more, you certainly can email me. My office hours are Mondays from 2 to 1. Mrs. Hinkle's are Wednesdays from 2 to 3. If you're in my class, do the weekly check-in. I always love to read them. Again, let me know if you have questions. If not, thanks for watching. Bye. Summative India infographic. Directions. For the summative, you will be making an infographic. What is an infographic? An infographic is a visual representation of information that a person can read quickly and clearly. It also uses designs, colors, and photos or drawings to help get that message across to the viewer. For this summative, you can either make the infographic by hand using paper and coloring utensils or using an online infographic maker. If you're using an online infographic maker, I suggest using Pictochart or Canva, but if you like other websites, you can do that too. You can watch this video here for a tutorial on how to use Pictochart. Do you want more examples of everyday infographics? Click here. All infographics are made for a special audience or viewer. Pretend your audience for this infographic will be an 8th grade student who wants to learn more about ancient and Middle Age India. Here is the prompt for your infographic. What does an 8th grader need to know about ancient and Middle Age India? Here's what you will need to include on your infographic. 1. Simple language and or explanations for foreign or complex words that an 8th grader would understand. No paragraphs, short sentences or phrases only. 2. Use of at least 7 vocab words from Unit 6. And no, you can't just slap the word in there. You need to tell me pieces of information about each of the vocab words. Here's a link right here to a list of vocab words, by the way. 3. Explanation of Buddhism. 4. Explanation of Hinduism. 5. Explanation of Islam and its connection to India. 6. At least 3 images relating to information in your infographic. These can be hand-drawn or from the internet. If you are using them from the internet, pay attention because at the bottom of each picture that you took from the internet, write the website you got it from and a small description of what the image is of. Just kind of a hint is that the Met Museum or the Metropolitan Museum of Art, that's my favorite place where I get a lot of my images for my slideshow. So I definitely suggest to check them out. Also, eye-appealing color design that flows throughout the infographic, not just black or white or gray. I want to see some color. No outside resources besides for pictures can be used for the summative. All information needs to come from the Unit 6 lessons. Okay? Only the Unit 6 lessons, besides pictures. Okay. Below, on the next page, is an example of an infographic I did about ancient and Middle Age China and Japan. Remember, you're doing one about India. The only reason why I did about China and Japan is so you couldn't just copy it if I did it about India, okay? You are doing India. This example is China and Japan, but you are doing India. Okay, cool. So here's my example here. Some stuff, do some vocab words. Yeah, pretty cool. All right, sweet. I left the summative a bit open-ended so you can be creative and show me what you know in an artistic style. Here's a link to the rubric, by the way. Make sure you upload your picture, image, or file of your infographic to the Unit 6 summative once you are done. As always, let us, Mrs. Hinkle and or Miss Corey, know if you have questions. This is a little bit different here. It is going to be due Friday, December 22nd at midnight. Why did I do that? Usually it's on Sundays. I know, but you're heading into winter break, and I don't want you to stress about a summative during winter break. So get it done like before you head off to winter break. So that is why it is due Friday, December 22nd at midnight. Okay? All right. Let us know if you have questions. We are here to help you. All right. Bye.